For nearly 2 decades, you've turned to Illegal Curve Hockey as your destination for the latest news, audio, and analysis regarding the Winnipeg Jets, Manitoba Moose, and all things hockey in Manitoba. Join Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk, and Ezra Ginsburg as a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good afternoon, Winnipeg. Good afternoon, Manitoba. For all those joining us live in City Place, as well as on all of our social media platforms, we say good afternoon, universe, and welcome to a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, the Illegal Curve pregame show, Game 7, Jets and Blues. It all comes down to tonight. We are here for the next 90 or so minutes, breaking down Game 7, getting you set for what will be a concluding clash of an epic series. All games have been won by the home team so far. Will the same continue tonight? We'll find out in a few hours' time. Along with Dave Manouk, along with Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. This is the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Gentlemen, for the first time ever at the NHL level, Game 7 in Winnipeg, Jets and Blues. Absolutely beautiful day outside. Only time will tell if it's a beautiful night as well for fans of the Winnipeg Jets, or if it's a disappointing night and it's beautiful for the fans of the St. Louis Blues. Can't help but be excited for this, regardless of what happens at the end of the night. And we'll break it all down later on the Illegal Curve post-game show. The excitement of a Game 7 is palpable in the air.
You love the word palpable. I think you've used that now for 4 pregame shows. It is a good word, and it is palpable, right? You're walking around downtown. You see it here in the City Place food court. It's all white. I mean, there's a few people who aren't wearing white, but for the most part, it's all white.
There's a couple Blues fans walked by us that we
drove here for 16 hours.
Yeah, 16 hours they made the drive to get here.
Got to support the team.
They're supporting their team, and they have a sign that they're carrying a sign that said "We want Connor," as in throwing the shade at Connor Hellebuck, which is maybe a dangerous thing, maybe not a dangerous thing. Time will tell if it is or isn't. But it is sort of cool to see those Blues fans made the drive up here, as well as we know how well Jets fans travel to wherever the Jets are playing.
Absolutely, and we were talking to the guys like you mentioned, Drew, before the pregame show started, and we were just talking about how good this series has been, regardless of who wins tonight. Obviously, we're a Winnipeg Jets show, so we're hoping that the Jets win, and we hope that we're going to have some round 2 pregame shows here at City Place as well. But I mean, you mentioned it. It's the biggest game of the year now. Game 5 was previously the biggest game of the year. Well, Game 7 is now the biggest game of the year, and this is the Jets season, simply put, right? You want to go to the second round, or do you want to have another first-round exit? This is obviously a huge game for Connor Hellebuck. We talked about it a lot on the Saturday morning show. Nobody saw him being pulled 3 times in St. Louis,
right?
And that obviously happened.
We all saw it.
Well,
nobody saw it coming.
You're right.
Got to be
clear.
Right, you got to clarify there.
You got me there. But so it's obviously a huge game for Hellebuck. All eyes are going to be on him, and all eyes are going to be on this game, guys. There's no other games left in the first round, so the entire hockey world, or people that like to watch all these series, are going to be watching tonight's game, so it's going to be absolutely epic, and I'm excited to break it down with you boys as usual.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Let's talk about the Jets roster for tonight's game, because there were some question marks. Mark Scheifele was on the ice yesterday, and
in a tracksuit,
so not in full equipment by any
And then
stretch.
all of a sudden there were 800,000 doctors in Winnipeg.
That's right. Any doctor shortage quickly came to an end yesterday after they all saw Mark Scheifele on the ice, and Scott Arniel was alluded to the fact that Mark Scheifele would be a possibility for today. Game time decision is what he called him yesterday. I think that was the Jets head coach sort of playing a little bit of fun, trying to maybe throw some question marks into the heads of the St. Louis Blues. Officially announced this morning that Mark Scheifele is not an option for the Winnipeg Jets. Not a surprise. When you look at again, he hasn't officially been diagnosed with a concussion, but for all intents and purposes, that's the assumption that everyone's going on. And if you look at the NHL's concussion protocol, even at a fast-forwarded version, it can't be passed within the span of about 24 hours. It takes at least 3, 4, 5 days. Yesterday there was maybe a glimmer of hope. That glimmer of hope is extinguished. No Mark Scheifele for the Winnipeg Jets tonight. Also, looks like no Logan Stanley. He's also officially a game-time decision. Hayden Fleury was skating with Luke Shen on the third pair for the Winnipeg Jets defense at morning skate today. So some upheaval with the Winnipeg Jets roster, but that's not a surprise. That's how it's been all series long, Dave.
All series long, all season long. I
Sure.
mean, that's the whole point, is that this team has to adjust and has to be able to handle those sort of ups and downs. And yeah, look, I mean, there was a lot of excitement when Kelly Moore reported, I think Kelly or Mitch were one of the first guys to report that Shifley was skating.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to speculate. I don't know. I mean, again, Drew, I think you're right, but I mean, the reality is we don't know. And so, I was joking today in the Matt Frost Media Center with our media colleagues. I was saying, listen, what's going to happen is you're going to have a Mark Scheifele appearance in warm-up, like Undertaker rising out of the coffin. And, of course, Jets fans are getting excited. And a lot of people were saying that, maybe they don't believe it until we actually see what happens in warm-up, and that's fair enough. I mean, look, nobody expected Nikolai Ehlers to play.
Yeah.
Sure enough, he played. Logan Stanley, it was funny. I said that Logan Stanley wasn't on the ice for morning skate and that Hayden Fleury was skating in his spot. I kind of thought that meant that people would understand Stanley wasn't on the ice because I said it, but folks were like, they were like, why would Logan Stanley be out? And then I thought, again, similar to the Eric Comrie narrative, I thought, man, what a world we live in now. Folks are upset that Logan Stanley's not in the lineup. But the fact of the matter is that this team has had to make do all season long, boys, with adjustments to the roster. We've seen Adam Lowry, not unfamiliar with Nikolai Ehlers and Cole Perfetti. That was a storyline with Scott Arneal, and he just talked about that familiarity because, remember, we talked about it on yesterday's Illegal Curve Hockey Show, which seems like a lifetime ago, but one of the things we were wondering was, would there be a desire to maybe move Morgan Barron? But I think, and we talked about it today a little bit, it makes sense from a Jets perspective that you don't change things. You've played very well at home.
Yeah.
You've played well with these lines at home. So start like this, see how it goes, see if you can have that good start, see if you can get things rolling, open the scoring. We know how critical opening the scoring is in a Game 7. So I think our
Unless you're the Colorado Avalanche.
well, yeah, Philip Paul Martin put out a stat. I think he said it was like 70% of the teams that score first end up winning. Again, it's not always, so it doesn't matter. But you'd like to obviously get that good start. And one of those things we're going to have to see is to see which guys step up, right, Ezzy? Because this is an opportunity. But the kind of the overarching message we heard from Brandon Tanev, who spoke today, or Kyle Connor, was not getting outside of your game. What has made you successful to be here? Don't try and make this game bigger than it needs to be. It's big. Everybody knows. A lot of these guys have played in Game 7s, whether it's with the Jets or in other on other teams.
Was it 8 of them? I think 8 players that played in the 17-18 Game 7 between the Jets and the Predators?
8, yeah, technically 8, but I think Shifley's one of those 8, so he's not playing tonight.
So 7 in
and
that
Comrie,
case.
technically, we couldn't remember if Comrie was on the bench or if he was the third goalie back then. So probably the third goalie back then.
But there's some experience in the dressing room when it comes to Game 7s.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's experience on both teams, so it's not like that's an advantage to the Winnipeg Jets or anything. But it's all these guys, or enough of these guys who are playing in tonight's game from both sides, know what the emotions are going to feel like.
Yep.
They know the experience. Now, none of us know what the experience of a Game 7 in front of the whiteout is going to be. This is obviously
I think it's going to be a little crazy.
I think it's going to be a lot crazy. That's obviously a historic first. You see the number of people wearing white Jets jerseys or white uniforms or white costumes here at City Place and all around downtown. You can tell that, what sort of gong show is in store here, Ezzy. But I think all of these aspects of the series, every sort of, scar that they wear, not necessarily literal scars, but, scar tissue, helps to prepare you for this game. Every single game, every single notch, every single shift prepares you for a game like tonight where you have to leave it all on the ice surface. And I know that whoever wins tonight is going to be playing again either on Tuesday or Wednesday, and obviously it's difficult emotionally to go from a Game 7 to a Game 1, but you can't get to that Game 1 until you absolutely exhaust yourself in that Game 7. So that has to be your mindset, is you have to leave it all out there. The video that the Jets put out today, which has been making the rounds on social media, is demonstrating that. You've heard all the players talk about that. That is the mindset for everybody. There is no tomorrow if you don't put in the work tonight.
Absolutely. And we're obviously going to talk more about the line combinations and the D pairings, and we've already talked a little bit about Connor Hellebuck. But to your point, Drew, I think a big thing to watch today, or a big factor in tonight's game, is going to be composure, right? That's been a big storyline in this series, right, guys? Like, we talked about it on the post-game show. We talked about it on yesterday morning show. the Jets were in control of the game in the second period, right? Like the game was for anybody to take. And we know what happened. We know the Nathan Walker goal happened, and then pretty much after the Braden Shen goal that made it 3-1 for St. Louis, everything fell apart. But I think regardless of who scores the first goal, and Dave makes a good point, I think it's 70%, 75%, whatever it is, whoever scores the first goal that wins the game, right? But also another thing we should mention is all 4 series that went to Game 7 last year in the first round were 1-goal games. So again, we're expecting this to be a tight game. Obviously, there have been some games in the series that haven't been as close. Most recently, Game 6. But I think that's something that I'm going to be watching in tonight's game. You know, whether it's the Jets that get the first goal or St. Louis gets the first goal. If St. Louis ties it up, let's say that the Jets do get the first goal. Well, how are the Jets going to react to that? Are they going to have? Is their game going to look the same? Are they going to have any type of? Is anything going to, set them off to get out of their structure? Because that's exactly what happened in Game 6, and that's been what's been so uncharacteristic about the Jets in the series, especially in St. Louis, is that we've seen them get out of that structure. Yeah. We've seen them make uncharacteristic errors. Like how they manage the puck in their own zone, just D to D, is going to be something I'm going to be watching earlier in this game, Dave, because that's something that they were having trouble with, that giving the puck away. Again, there were a lot of things not to like about Game 6. Like it wasn't one deep pairing or one forward line. I mean, we talked about it. The special teams we did like. They killed off all 6 Blues penalties, but this is
scored 2 goals.
This is a huge game for Connor Hellebuck, boys, but it's also a huge game for every single guy that's going to be in the lineup. Whether it's Hayden Fleury, whether it's Dominic Toninato, I mean, everybody has a role on this team. It's going to take everybody to beat this Blues team. I mean, this Blues team, look, some people were, after 2 games, were calling for the sweep. Well, those brooms were put away very quickly, right? And now we're in Game 7 here. So, well, I mean, this is going to be an epic clash for sure.
Let's talk about the goaltending battle. Let's talk about Connor Hellebuck. Let's talk about Jordan Binnington. Jordan Binnington's numbers in the 2 Game 7s that he has played in his career are stupendous. He's won both games. He's got a save percentage of .968. Is
that good?
That's good. He's given up 1 goal in each of the 2 Game 7s that he's played in his career. Right now, I mean, it's hard to believe this. The St. Louis Blues have the more solid goaltending in this series right now. There's no question about it.
It's not even close.
Right, it's not even close.
Which is not something we saw coming.
Which it's hard to believe that it's even at a Game 7, given the disparity in the quality of the goaltending. Now, Connor Hellebuck has, of course, been better on home ice, and the Jets have been better on home ice. But it's not that Jordan Binnington, even when he's been in Winnipeg, has been poor in terms of as a goaltender. He's been stable and solid all series long for the St. Louis Blues. You cannot say the same about Connor Hellebuck, but at the same time, Dave, redemption is a Game 7 victory.
Sure, and I think the other thing also is that if the Jets just get league average goaltending we've seen, then they'll be okay. So we know that Connor Hellebuck is more than capable of giving them league average. He's capable of giving them exceptional goaltending. And look, this is legacy defining. It really is. I mean, again, we talked about it, and I don't think it was a mischaracterization, and I don't think it was too hyperbolic. I mean, the fact of the matter is this core wanted to stick together. They wanted to give that extra percentage. They wanted to be able to kind of set it on their terms. Well, they did. They have, and they had an exceptional regular season. But this wasn't about the regular season. It wasn't about the 82 games.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to change that narrative. And part of that changing that narrative is here's your opportunity. It's Game 7. It's a chance for you to take control. And again, like I said, I'm not saying you have to win the Stanley Cup, but you have to do something tonight. You have to show up and you have to play. Look, if you lose a 2-1 game, a 1-0 game goes to overtime, that happens. But the fact of the matter is you have to show that you are the same team that you were for the majority of the season, most of these home games,
sure.
And that's the key, is that you've got the home ice. This is, again, home ice hasn't always been favorable to the Jets, and I know folks were quick to point that out in the last few rounds, but this round, it has been, they're 3-0, and it's been
This is exactly why you get home ice, right? Well, because of the whiteout crowd, and we talked about it earlier, but, I mean, we know, boys, the whiteout crowd is going to do its job, right? The folks that are watching at the whiteout street party, they're going to bring all of that energy. They're going to bring all of that noise. They're going to do the job. It's the players on the ice that are going to have to do their jobs. Captain Obvious speaking here. But the Jets, I think, they have to rally around the fact that they have been much better at home on the road. I go back to Drew. I'll give Drew credit here for bringing up the 1960s World Series, the Pirates and the Yankees. It's been one of those crazy series where the play on the ice at home has been much different for both teams, right? So, I mean, it's...
So how fragile do you think the Winnipeg Jets are? Do you think they are fragile at all? I'll ask it in two different ways. After what happened last game 6 in St. Louis, after what's happened in all the games in St. Louis, do you think that is psychologically going to have any impact on the Winnipeg Jets, or are they just going to point to their performance on home ice, where they have undoubtedly been the better of the two teams? Certainly in the key moments on home ice, they've been the better of the two teams.
And they've been good in St. Louis. Like, let's not pretend like somehow they were terrible for 60 minutes of a hockey game. I mean, again, like
Except
I said,
for Game 3, I would say.
Sure, but I'm saying that. But St. Louis absolutely came out like a house on fire.
Game
and played,
3 was over in the
played,
first 10 minutes.
And played like that. But the fact of the matter is, 3 goals on 10 shots will probably help that for you, or won't help your cause. But the fact of the matter is, the Jets didn't play poorly. There were lots of things that they could like in St. Louis. Now, again, ultimately, the bottom line is you lost those games, so you don't like them overall. But the fact of the matter is, I honestly don't think this team is going to be that fragile. I don't think they're going to wilt. I don't think the crowd's going to let them do that. I think the crowd's going to be into this. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you find yourself down 4-1 after 20 minutes, fine, I get it. But the fact of the matter is,
How surprised will you be if it's, we were talking, producer Tim and I were talking before about, the last time there was a playoff series that sort of comes to mind where the home team each won the first 3 games on home ice, Boston and Vancouver. Yep. And then Game 7 in the Stanley Cup final, Boston destroyed Vancouver. Then Vancouver rioted. Remember, that's when
fine.
Do you think,
No, first of all, I don't think...
And once again, if the Jets do lose
do not
tonight,
riot.
Do not riot. Please do not riot.
That is the lesson of...
We're better than Vancouver.
Exactly right.
But no, I'm not concerned about that. I mean, but the fact of the matter is that, one of the things that this team has been key to do this whole season is they move on. They're not worried about last game, let alone what happened in a previous playoff or some historical fact. The fact of the matter is that
they're not looking at the 1960 World Series.
Drew, I asked some guys about that today, and each guy looked at me and they said, "I know Mandel was like 45 at that time, but we weren't born, so we don't know what you're talking about." Even Scott Neal was a little bit fuzzy, and he likes Pittsburgh-based teams because I know he's a Steelers fan. But the fact of the matter is that if you actually look at the way this team is going to come out, again, they're going to be like goldfish. They're not going to remember. They're not going to remember what happened last game. They're just going to focus, and the key really, and we heard it from Brandon Tanev, is just to win that shift. Not worry about what's going to happen in the end result of this game. Not worry about what's happening in the second period. In the first period, in the first 2 minutes, if you're on the ice, you worry about that shift. Then you get off the ice and you worry about your next shift. And you're not letting all these other external factors get to you. And I think, again, like I said, they've been really good at home, so it's hard to not have faith that they're going to maintain what they've done throughout the course of this season and throughout the course of the playoffs.
So just do your job, which is the mantra that Bill Belichick, when he was the Super Bowl winning head coach instead of whatever the heck's going on with his personal life lately, that was his job when he was the head coach of the Patriots. He went to each and every player and said, look, just you worry about your job. Don't worry about what your teammate has to do. Don't worry about what the other player is doing. Don't worry about what the opposition is doing. Do your job and you'll end up as a victor. And that's sort of the I think what Dave is saying is that has to be the mindset tonight from the Winnipeg Jets, each and every one of them on an individual basis.
Absolutely. And the only reason, guys, we're talking about the fragility question is because of what's happened in St. Louis, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. But to your point, Dave, it's often difficult to say that that's going to be a carryover, right? Yeah. Like, these guys are all mentally tough. We'll worry about that after Game 7, right? Guys, like if the Jets don't end up winning tonight's Game 7, because those questions are going to come up, whether they were mentally fragile and everything like that, right? But I tend to agree with Dave that I think, we've seen how the Jets can play in the regular season. We've seen how they can play in this round against the St. Louis Blues. They know that. And I really think they are going to benefit from having the 15,000 plus in attendance in the whiteout crowd, right? Like, that's something that they know, get an early goal and then just ride that wave the rest of the game.
And the only thing I would add is the one other thing we're going to see is matchups. Scott Arniel's going to control them, and we saw
and that's a big factor.
We saw, of course. I mean, look at the Luke Shen pairing on the road versus at home. Yeah. They're not good. The numbers aren't good. And again, to the point where you question whether you want Luke Shen in the lineup on a road game because of the fact that they're taking such advantage of him when he's on the ice. So that's something to consider. But for right now, again, you have the last change. And I mean, Luke Shen obviously plays a role in the penalty kill, and they were 6 for 6 in that last one. But ultimately, like I said, to me, that is going to be a major factor, that they're going to control who goes on when, who they see when, that sort of thing. And from my perspective, that's going to be important because it's been important in every game this series.
Yeah, well, I think that is a factor. So let's talk about that. Hayden Fleury draws into the lineup. At least he appears as though he's more likely than not to draw in the lineup for Logan Stanley, who's banged up with something. We don't know what the injury is.
I mean, Scott O'Neill didn't confirm that he was banged up. It's reasonable to assume
he
wasn't on the ice today.
Yeah, it's one thing if he was, if he had skated and he wasn't going to play, then you'd assume it's a health.
We didn't notice anything after Game 6. That's why I think it was a bit of a surprise. But he's obviously not playing, so we have to go with that.
So let's talk about that. So we have seen the Hayden Fleury in action in this series. I believe it was Game 3, if I'm not mistaken, which was when DeMello didn't play and everybody got moved up, and the whole thing was a bit of a schmoz for the Winnipeg Jets. I think that's the technical term for how they played in Game 3. So what are you expecting from a Fleury-Shen pairing, and especially how much do you think that Scott O'Neill is going to have to protect them when they play on the third pair for the Jets?
I mean, we've seen Hayden Fleury all season long when he's been in the lineup, right? I don't think there's any surprises here, guys. I don't think there's going to be much of a difference between Logan Stanley and Luke Shen and Hayden Fleury and Luke Shen, to be honest with you. I'm not trying to dismiss your question, Drew. I'm just saying that, I mean, Hayden Fleury's pretty reliable. Does he get caught maybe a little bit running around in his own zone sometimes? Yes. Does he have deficiencies in his game? Yes. And to Dave's point, Luke Shen wasn't good enough in Game 6.
Yep.
Let's be clear about that, right? We're all big fans of Luke Shen's game. I think we all agree that was a big...
He's been far better on home ice in this playoff series than he has been on the road.
But guess who else has been better on home ice than on the road? The entire Winnipeg Jets team, right, guys? So, I mean, I look at the third pair and I mean, this is why you have guys like Hayden Fleury, right? This is why you have guys like Colin Miller. These are veteran guys with hundreds of games of NHL experience. So it's comforting to know that it's not like you're putting in, like, I don't want to throw in Ville Heinola, but you're not throwing in an inexperienced defenseman.
Who's played 4 games.
Who's played, a few games in the NHL this year. Hayden Fleury's played a bunch of games for the Jets, so he's reliable. But look, it goes back to what we said before, guys. Like, obviously, big things are expected out of Vladislav Nemesnikov stepping in for Mark Scheifele on the top line for the second game in a row. But every single guy on this team is going to be relied upon to do their job, right? And that's what we saw in Game 6, that the Jets, there were too many guys that weren't doing their jobs, right? And they know this. So I think Fleury's fine. I've seen enough of Hayden Fleury in his career that I think he'll be fine with Luke Shen on that third pair.
I just want to know what St. Louis has against Kitchener-Waterloo, because they just seem to want to take those guys out.
I think they're trying to take down the Jets one player at a time is more likely what it seems to be happening. And they've been pretty successful at that. Obviously, the Jets without Scheifele now, thanks to the Braden Shen hit.
Well, we don't know.
Okay.
Because Shane...
Well, Dr. Montgomery said that it was the Radek Faxa hit, guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, or the Jordan Kyrou hit. I mean, he had 3 big hits in that first period. So he's being targeted. I mean, let's call it what it is. They're trying to, same as what they're doing to Josh Morrissey.
Yep.
Every time they try and put that puck in deep and they try and turn Morrissey around and they try and lay him out. Well, there's a method to the madness. They're trying to wear him down. And again, we'll see what kind of impact that has in Game 7. And I will say, the one thing I want to say is, and Connor's here now, but we've been around this team, pretty much every day for the entirety of the season.
Connor Garabchuk, not Connor Hellebuck or
Kyle Connor Hellebuck right here, or Kyle Connor. But no, but my point is that, when you're like being down in the room today, and again, it wasn't tight. It felt like, to be honest with you, it just felt like any other game on the regular season schedule. Now I know these guys know it's not any other game. We talked about it with Kyle Connor. We talked about it with Brandon Tanev, but I will say, like, it just didn't seem like there were guys making jokes, and the room felt light. And I just think it's important, because I think that if there's a lot of nerves, if they're tight, that can work against you. And again, I'm not suggesting that these guys couldn't hide that sort of element, but it just seemed, and again, like we're, kind of paid to observe. And one of the things I just observed from today was it just seemed like the group was loose, not casual, for the record, to be clear, but they were not tight.
They were comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah, they were comfortable in the fact that they know that they're 3-0 here at home. Mm-hmm. They had the best home record during the regular season, and that they played damn well when pushes come to shove and when they need to rebound from a poor start, right? That's one of the things we've talked about.
So let's take Connor Hellebuck out of the equation for this question. To take him out, which player from the Jets are you looking towards to sort of step up and maybe have the most significant impact on this game. There's going to be one of those guys who, at the end of Game 7, there's always somebody who stands out as that is the reason why the team was able to succeed. Last night, we saw Mikko Rantanen with a performance for the ages.
Ridiculous.
Again, for anybody who didn't watch the Stars-Avs last night, Colorado was up 2-0 in the third period, and then Mikko Rantanen took over the game in the third period alone. He had a hat trick and an assist in a 4-2 Dallas Stars victory.
By the way, Drew, was that not the only way that series was going to end? Like, you knew that was going to happen, right? Like, you knew Mikko Rantanen was going to burn his old team, right?
He certainly scorched them.
Good on Dallas for winning that series without Heiskanen.
Well,
and
what about
Robertson.
Pete DeBoer? 9-0 in Game 7?
Tremendous job.
Don't bet against him.
Good coach.
And whoever wins this game tonight between the Jets and the Blues will obviously face the Dallas Stars. I'm assuming Wednesday.
Wednesday,
I think,
yeah.
probably Wednesday because they've got 2 games already on Tuesday.
Right. So I assume Wednesday would be the second half of the doubleheader on Wednesday. But
that's what I would think.
We'll find out that whether it's in Winnipeg or St. Louis or who the opponent is. After 6 o'clock tonight, closer to 9 o'clock, we'll know that answer. But forget about that. So not that a player has to come up and get 3 goals and an assist because that's not realistic. But who are you looking towards on the Winnipeg Jets to really step up and have that impact? Non-Connor Hellebuck division.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a very valid question because, like you said, you seem to see it every time in a Game 7, whether it's Mikko Rantanen last night or whoever it is, TJ Oshie back in the day for the Washington Capitals, right? If I can pick a line, Drew, if you were going to accept a line, I'm going to go Lowry, Ehlers, Perfetti. And I'm sure we're going to talk to Connor Hrabchuk about this because obviously, a lot is going to be expected from that line. Not to say that a lot won't be expected out of Nemestikov, Connor, and Velarde. Look, it would be great, Drew, if Gabe Velarde could chip in a goal tonight, right?
Sure.
But I'm looking at that Lowry, Ehlers, Perfetti line because I liked some of what I saw in Game 6 from that line, right? We talked about the chance that Ehlers had in the second period where he had that good rush, and then he got his own rebound, and Binnington stopped it, right? So I'm looking at that line. If that line is clicking early on, I think that's going to go a long way into the Jets winning tonight's game.
Dave, you can pick a line, you can pick a player. To me, I want to see Josh Morrissey because he has not had the series that we would have expected. Largely, I think, due to the targeting that the St. Louis Blues, they've said, Morrissey's not going to be the one who beats us. And they've been pretty adept at keeping him from being as dynamic as he usually is. He's a guy that I'm looking for today to really make an impact on the game.
Well, I would be inclined to go with Adam Lowry or Josh Morrissey as my kind of initial thoughts when you asked me the question. But the other guy I definitely want to see, probably guys. I'm going to go with 2 guys, Gabe Velarde and Kyle Connor. You are you're on the number 1 line. If you're Gabe Velarde, you're looking to sign a big deal and get yourself a long-term deal with big money at the end of it. Well, you need to show this is the most important time. And I thought he had an okay game in the last one. Like, it wasn't great, didn't stand out, and he needs to. He's in the top line. He's got to perform. And again, like I said, to me, I think Lowry has to set the tone. So I love, as his answer because I agree with it, especially given that line had chemistry when they played together. So Lowry definitely, Josh Morrissey on the back end, no question about it. He's got to be the tone setter. It's his skating, but this is his house. This is his rink.
Literally, he lives here.
Yeah, right there. There's his house. But the point is that, this is his, you don't want to let these guys come in and make a statement in your residence, and so believe me, I had this guy making a statement in my residence. It wasn't fun. There was always leaves the toilet seat up. It's not
lots of crumbs.
Yeah,
crumbs
lots of
everywhere.
crumbs. It's not great. You don't house guests are not annoying, but the point is that what you want to do is you want to make sure that for those 2 for sure, because they wear the leadership on their jerseys,
and they're the guys who probably.
I think Neil Pionk was wearing it on the road with Scheifele out. I think Pionk was wearing the A as well. But again, like I said, if not them, then I would go with Kyle Connor, and I'd go with Gabriel Velarde because, again, you have to. Kyle Connor's the offensive driver. Nick, now I kind of want to pick Nikolai Ehlers as well. I want everyone.
You want
I'd
everybody.
like to throw in Sandberg and Pionk.
You sit on the fence, both of you. I'll tell you what. I'm going to ask that same question to somebody who's a little bit more articulate than you two. That's Connor Hrabchuk. He's going to join us after the commercial break.
By the way, Connor Hrabchuk of illegalcurve.com.
Of illegalcurve.com,
Thank
of
you.
course. No question about it. So that's up next. Much more to come. We're about 90 minutes away from puck drop. Probably close to 100 minutes, to be honest. The Jets and the St. Louis Blues, Game 7. It's all that matters. Stay with us. It's the Illegal Curve pregame show, live on location at City Place. We're thrilled to be here, as always. Thanks to so many of you walking by, chanting "Go Jets, go!" Although there is a gentleman to my right over here wearing a Blues jersey. But so, it seems like everybody's being nice to him so far, so at least that's good. Friendly Manitoba.
Come on.
There you go.
You're in a safe space. It's all good.
Much more to come here on the Illegal Curve pregame show.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve hot pregame show, a special edition live here at City Place, getting you set for the Jets and the Blues Game 7. Lots of good Jets fans wandering by, some Blues fans. We just met a couple Blues fans. They drove up from Omaha, Nebraska.
Just outside
of Omaha. So they
and
drove
we have
up.
Little Benny is here. And
Yeah.
we got lots of fans.
There you go. It's a good
Uncle
party.
Dave.
Yeah, there you go. He calls Dave Uncle Dave. It's perfect. Connor Harabchuk has joined the program. First and foremost, Connor, congratulations on your recent graduation.
Thank you very
much. How's that
much.
feel to be an adult now and you have to get on with things? You got to get a mortgage, settle down, wife, 2 kids, all that jazz.
It'd be great if I could work for another 3 weeks. Let's keep this going.
There you go.
Depending on tonight.
Well,
but, it was great.
The Jets have to take care of that. So
Yes.
I posed the question to these two before, and neither of them really gave me a good answer, and I hope that you're going to be a little bit more erudite in how you respond. Who from the Winnipeg Jets are you looking to see step up and have that impact, that game-changing impact on tonight's Game 7?
Well, Dave kind of said it, but I'm going to say Nikolai Ehlers. You didn't fully commit, so I can take that pick.
All yours.
He didn't look like the normal Nikolai Ehlers, nor should he have been in Game 6, right? He missed 3.5 weeks. He wasn't going to come back and be normal Nikolai Ehlers. But with no Mark Scheifele, the Jets need offense in this game, and they need to find offense from their secondary wingers. Their top 6 wingers are going to have a huge game in terms of Kyle Connor, Gabe Vilardi, Nick Ehlers, and Cole Perfetti. But the Adam Lowry line is going to get put up against, kind of a Jordan Kyrou or a Robert Thomas. So they're not only going to have to shut down the Blues, but they're going to have to contribute offensively with no Mark Scheifele as well. So Nikolai Ehlers.
Okay, Connor, I'm going to get right into it right now because obviously Drew said we couldn't pick Hellebuck, but Hellebuck is obviously who everybody is
100%.
talking about, who everybody's going to be focused on. I feel like every single shot, especially in the first period, is going to be like dissected. Like, was he in the right form? Was he tracking the puck properly? But I'm just going to ask you what is your confidence level in Hellebuck right now? Because obviously, Game 6 didn't go how he wanted it to.
Yes, of course. And I will say he's been better at home. Game 2, he stopped 21 of 22. Game 1, shaky start, made a big stop off Jordan Kyrou. Game 5, again, shaky at moments with the Snuggerud goal, but still ultimately better than on the road. My confidence level, that is a very tough question.
1 to 10, just give us a one. Give us a number higher than 7, please.
I really wish I could defer my answer to after the first period, but I will say, I'll say 5. I'm gonna fence it right down the middle. I'm not extremely confident. I'm also not of the opinion that they should have started Eric Comrie or anything like that. I think
you just can't do that, right?
No,
it's just not an option.
No, it's not. And Connor Hellebuck is going to win the Hart or might win the Hart. He's definitely going to win the Vezina. At some point in this series, I've maintained that he's going to show up in his usual form, and what a time it would be for Game 7. So I still have more confidence than maybe some Jets fans who want Eric Comrie in the net, but not the ultimate confidence as maybe a Blues fan would with Jordan Binnington in net for this game.
Connor, when you look at the fact that they really didn't make any changes up front, and the only change that we've seen, obviously, is Logan Stanley is replaced by Hayden Fleury, and that's not because of a lineup decision, other than the fact that it appears that Logan Stanley's banged up and dealing with something.
Yeah.
But from your perspective, are you surprised that they stuck with the lines the way they are and the way they had success with them? Not a lack of success in the last game, but obviously more success in the previous game.
I'm not shocked. I will say, in a Game 7 with probably 2 days off, if we're speculating that they might start Wednesday in round 2 if they were to win this game, Josh Morrissey and Dylan Samberg are going to be on the ice for 90+% of this game.
Yeah.
So they are going to be running those guys. As for the third pair, that's not shocking that, yes, Logan Stanley's banged up. Hayden Fleury is the only other guy that's played in this series on the left side, so he's going to come in. As for the forward lines, I really did like Connor Nemesnikov-Vilardi in Game 5 when Mark Scheifele went down. The 2 periods without Scheifele, that line was really good. Nemesnikov got the goal. So I'm not shocked there. Ehlers and Lowry, I think, have chemistry, and I think Cole Perfetti is a player who's getting better as the series is going on. So I don't hate the top 6. And the bottom 6, Morgan Barron is fit for that role in the defensive shutdown center type, and I think he's if we're talking unsung heroes, it's always a big thing in Game 7. Morgan Barron is up there at the top of my list as maybe a bottom 6 player that makes a big impact.
He's had 2 goals called off, Connor. He's due for one.
He's very due. Very
Sorry,
due.
not called off. The first goal was credited to him originally.
Yes,
I meant to say that's what I meant to say.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know. I do think that it's ultimately the right decision to start this game with this configuration of the top 6 because I just don't really know what adjustments you can make in this top 6. You're so handicapped with no Mark Scheifele that you kind of have to run Nemesnikov and Lowry with the winger configuration as it currently stands.
That's what I was going to ask you. Our guest is Connor Harabchuk of IllegalCurve.com. I was going to ask you that,
Sorry,
Connor,
Winnipeg Sports Talk.
At this point in time, at this point in the series, is there adjustments that Jim Montgomery is making? Are there adjustments that Scott O'Neill are making? Is it simply about which team, which players are going to better execute? It just seems that through the first 6 games, the team that wins the net front battle wins the game. It almost seems like it's boiled down to something that simple. Is it just a matter of which team gets there and executes rather than any particular adjustments either coach can make at this point?
Yeah, I think if we're taking a series-long view at this, the first 2 games the Jets jumped out to a 2-0 series lead. Then St. Louis made adjustments, tied the series up. Then the Jets made adjustments and won Game 5. And then St. Louis made adjustments. If you want to go back and forth, you can. But I think coming out of Game 5, St. Louis is going to make those adjustments, and now it's just game on. I don't think there are really any tweaks you can make going into a Game 7 where the Jets just won on home ice a few days ago, right? And St. Louis has been amazing at home. What is that, 15 straight wins now at the Enterprise Center? I will say one thing that has been consistent in every single Jets win in this series is their ability to shut down plays in in the neutral zone. Dylan Sandberg is obviously one of the best defensemen in the NHL at that, as well as Dylan DeMello. When he's on, he's shutting plays down before they even get into the zone. You've seen lower shot totals on Connor Hellebuck at home because of that. So I don't really know if it's an adjustment or execution, like you say, I'd lean more towards execution, but if the Jets can own the neutral zone, that's their path to victory, in my opinion, without a Mark Scheifele.
You mentioned Dylan Sandberg earlier, and I think it's a really good point that you make up because I actually, with the exception maybe of last game, I know the Jets lost pretty badly in games 3 and 4 in St. Louis, but for the most part, I think you could argue Sandberg and Pionk have been the best D pair for the Jets, right? Obviously, Josh Morrissey, 3 assists in 6 games. Those aren't the type of numbers that we can expect. But how important do you think their play is going to be? I mean, that sounds like a pretty obvious question, but based on the stakes, I mean, I think it goes without saying that's the Sandberg-Pionk pairing. They're going to play big minutes, and they're going to be tasked with shutting down either the Thomas line or the Kyrou line.
Oh, 100%. And they are the catalyst for shutting down plays in the neutral zone. Like I said, Dylan Sandberg's one of the best defensemen in the league at defending off the rush, defending one-on-one. Neil Pionk is the puck mover, so Sandberg shuts down the plays and then gets it over to Pionk, and he moves it up the ice. And they're going to be tasked with Robert Thomas or Jordan Kyrou or whatever line in the top 6 that the Blues throw at them. And the Jets have last change. So every time there's a whistle, and the Blues have a top 6 line out there, there is zero chance that not one of Dylan Sandberg or Josh Morrissey is on the ice. Like, they have last change. Those guys are going to play massive minutes. It's do or die. You need your best players to be your best players. And I think that pairing specifically, as well as the Morrissey-DeMello pairing, is going to have to win their minutes. And if they do, the Jets are in a good spot.
Absolutely.
You know, Connor, one of the things that you don't like the results in Game 6, but the one thing that we talked about a little bit before you got on was the idea that the special teams had success. And, one of our biggest concerns throughout the course of the season was the PK. Well, the PK goes 6 for 6, and, of course, they scored 2 power play goals. So is that at least one positive if you're a Jets player from last game you're looking to bring into this one? Is that, listen, if we get into penalty trouble, we've been very good on the PK, and if we get on the power play, we're back to kind of getting, again, they don't have the whole band back together, but they're able to kind of get some goals that way.
I will say, I thought the power play, even on the ones that they didn't score, generated, and you saw the movement. And I really like Scarter Neal's decision to not really have a center on that unit. Like, Gabe Velarde takes the draws, so I guess he's technically the center. Right. But they're just putting their 5 best players on the ice and kind of not hoping for the best. That's what they're tactically doing. But I thought it worked, so I agree with you. I think that is something that is a positive that Jets fans can look at going into this game, because the power play looked good even in the moments that they didn't score. And then the penalty kill, this is the thing. I love to look at trends. I love to look at analytics. I love to look at all these things going into a series. In Game 7, your power play can go 3 for 4 and you win the game. It's just a one-game showdown. You kind of throw everything out the window, and it's all down to one game. So I don't know. The penalty kill, yes, it's a very good sign that they went 6 for 6 last game, but they're going to have to step up again in this one for sure.
Speaking of one-game and one-game showdowns, Jordan Binnington in Game 7 one-game showdowns, his record 2-0, .82 goals against, and a .968 save percentage. If you're the Winnipeg Jets, you're in the pregame room, you're talking about the game. Is it about getting people in front of Jordan Binnington, getting people so that he's feeling a little bit uncomfortable in the net? Is that sort of step one in the first few minutes of tonight's contest?
In my opinion, yes. Like Jordan Binnington, like any goalie, like Connor Hellebuck, if he's not going to be able to see the puck, he's not going to be able to stop it. So I'm a big advocate for when you don't have Mark Scheifele and you maybe can't make those passes into high danger areas, you're going to have to get greasy goals, an Adam Lowry, a Nino Niederreiter, a Morgan Barron type. And I think getting eyes in front of Jordan Binnington is something that the Jets can improve on going into this game. You talk about adjustments and whether it's just execution. I don't think they've done that well enough, especially on the road. But even at home, I think they could be doing a better job of that. So that's something I think is key for the Jets, getting eyes or getting bodies in front of Jordan Binnington's eyes and making life difficult on him, because we know the Blues are going to be trying to do that to the Jets.
Yeah, and I think you make a lot of good points there, and I wanted to ask you about this idea of composure and fragility, because obviously you would agree, Connor, that in Game 6, everything looked to be going well for the Jets in Game 2. And as you know, you've played hockey and watched hockey your entire life, right? You know that a game can change on a dime, right? Yeah. Like, you could be in control of the game. It could be a close game. One goal goes in that you probably should have been a lot better defensively. Obviously, we're talking about the Nathan Walker, the second goal, even though the Braden Shen goal, I think you'd agree, is where everything fell apart.
Yeah.
But what are you looking to see in terms of how the Jets compose themselves, especially early on this game? Because I think, look, we'd all agree, whether it's Connor Hellebuck's play or whether it's the Jets' play in St. Louis, there's a lot of nervous Jets fans just based on how up and down they've been in the different cities where these games have been played.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous how carbon copy Game 4 and Game 6 were, where the game is 1-1 halfway through it, and you don't think the Jets are playing that bad, and then within 8 minutes, it's over. Like, the game is absolutely over. And is it Connor Hellebuck? Is it the team in front of him? I've been a big advocate that it's a little bit of both. I know a lot of people want to pin it all on Hellebuck or pin it all on the team. That Braden Shen one you brought up, he has to stop that. Like, that time of the game, location of the shot, unscreened, untipped, you got to stop that puck. And I think managing emotions going into a Game 7 is the best thing a team can do to prepare themselves. Dave was at the rink this morning, but I was watching the player availabilities on illegalcurve.com.
Good plug.
Yeah,
Well done. Yeah.
And
Listen to that.
yeah, Brandon Tanev was asked about, his whether or not he's a napper and things like that, and how he manages emotions going into a Game 7. And I think keeping the routine the same, not getting yourself too amped up for a game and burning yourself out way too early, I think is something that the Jets have to do, and then feed off the crowd energy in the first 10 minutes. Because if the Jets come out and Adam Lowry and Morgan Barron and Brandon Tanev throw a couple of massive hits, the whiteout's going to go nuts, regardless of whether the Jets score or not. Just get that energy on your side.
And what about the Blues? Is there anything from the St. Louis Blues that you're watching for? I mean, again, as much as we talk about their success at home, they have not, and they've played well here in Winnipeg, so I'm not trying to take that away, but the Jets have also had games where they played well, and you talked about it, they've had those lapses in judgment for, an 8-minute stretch, a 10-minute stretch, but they've also held St. Louis with, no shots for 10 minutes. So from your perspective, is there anything that you're looking at that St. Louis is going to try and do that they've not been able to do through the first 3 games of the series at home in Winnipeg?
Yeah, St. Louis, I think they've done, especially at home, they've done a really good job of getting their defensemen involved offensively, whether that's from point shots, of course, like the fourth goal in the last game, Cam Fowler just shoots through like 10 bodies and it somehow goes in. But off the rush, too, like you'll see the Blues come in 3-on-2, and there's a fourth defenseman always jumping into the play. So I think that's something that they're going to look to capitalize on the Jets in this game. As for what they can improve on, I think more sustained ozone time if you're a St. Louis Blues fan, especially on the road. That's something that they haven't had. I talked about this game being won and lost in the neutral zone from a Jets perspective. Mark Scheifele has nothing to do with that. Whether or not the Jets can control the neutral zone, right? Whether or not he's playing has nothing to do with how the Jets can backtrack and shut plays down in the neutral zone. So I think if you're the Blues, you're probably going to look to chip and chase a little bit more, spend more time in the offensive zone, and get more shots on goal, because in Winnipeg, those have been hard to come by for St. Louis.
Connor Harabchuk, our guest. Connor, of course, does great work for us at illegalcurve.com. This is the Illegal Curve pregame show. We're live on location at City Place ahead of Game 7 between the Jets and the St. Louis Blues. Obviously one game, you can't keep anything in reserve for tomorrow if there is no tomorrow. How long do you think Scott Arniel sticks with lines if he sees that they're maybe not working? How quickly do you think you could see the blender get put out on the shelf for today's game? If Lowry, Perfetti, and Ehlers aren't working and they need a boost, and switching things around with the forward groups.
Yeah, I honestly think you could see that even if things aren't going wrong. The fourth line is projected to be Brandon Tanev, Dominic Toninato, and Alex Iafallo. Yeah. I don't think Alex Iafallo is going to play 7 minutes, like a fourth liner usually would, right? I think maybe Adam Lowry drops down and double shifts with those guys, with Tanev and Iafallo. I think as for the blender and switching lines, I think if you're halfway through the game and things aren't working, you're not generating offensive 5-on-5, that's when he'll look to change it. But I think from the second the puck drops, you're going to see a lot of game management from Scott Arniel in terms of okay, it's a defensive zone draw, so I'll throw Lowry out there with Tanev and Iafallo instead of Ehlers and Perfetti. And if it's an offensive zone draw, you'll see Lowry with Ehlers and Perfetti and get those guys more minutes. Dominic Toninato, I don't think is going to play much at all in this game. I think the Jets are really going to run their top 3 centers of Nemestikov, Lowry, and Barron.
So it's almost more of an 11-6 than a 12-6 for the Winnipeg Jets.
11-5, honestly. I don't think Fleury plays much either. I just don't think their minutes are going to be high. Morrissey and Sandberg are going to play so much. Or at least that's what I would do if I was the coach.
That makes sense. Play your 2 best defensemen. Yeah. What a novel concept.
Easy enough, right? Yeah.
Connor, we talked about it a little bit earlier. Dallas obviously won Game 7. They await the winner of this Jets-Blues series. I think a lot of people are looking at the Stars without Miro Heiskanen. I almost said without Mikko Rantanen.
They have Rantanen.
And without Jason Robertson. And obviously, the expectation is those guys are going to come back. And obviously, it's going to be a tough test, but how do you see the Jets matching up against the Dallas Stars? Because everyone
getting ahead of yourself.
No. I mean, that's the prize, right? Like if the Jets win tonight, that's the prize. Is you get to play. It's not a great prize, right? Because it's a good Stars team. But I mean, I think a lot of people are looking at the Stars and saying that they are the heavy favorites, but you can't forget that the Jets were pretty successful against the Stars during the regular season.
True, but that didn't mean much against the Avs last year either. So it's. I almost want to reserve that thought, not only because we're teeing up a Game 7, but also because Miro Heiskanen and Jason Robertson haven't played, and they might play for Dallas. Sure. So Dallas just knocked off the Avs without their second best forward and their best defenseman by far. Like, I don't know. Dallas is an absolute wagon. I do think that they match up better against Dallas if Dallas doesn't have Heiskanen and Robertson because of the speed element of Colorado. I just don't think the Jets can keep up with them skating-wise. So if the Jets were to win this game and go on and face Dallas, I do like their odds in that series. Obviously, tons of things would have to change and improve, like Connor Hellebuyck, the ability to make sure Connor Hellebuyck can see pucks, like all of those things. If the Jets wouldn't clean up in a second round series, they would be cooked because Dallas is better than St. Louis. But yeah,
and obviously without Scheifele, that changes a lot. It's so interesting though, right? Like I always say this on the Saturday morning show. Like we break down hockey. You mentioned, Connor, you're big into advanced stats, and obviously we have a lot of time for the importance of advanced stats, but oftentimes you break it all down and what is supposed to happen doesn't happen, right? And that's the beauty of hockey, in my opinion, is that one hockey game is unlike the next hockey game, right? Like there's so many things that happen. Obviously goaltending factors in big time, but I think you'd agree that in tonight's game, everything that we've been talking about is going to be thrown out the window once the first couple goals are scored.
Yeah, no kidding. And I said this after Game 4 going into Game 5 too. Like the Jets' two biggest advantages during the regular season was goaltending and their power play. Those two things alone won them so many games, won them the President's Trophy. It was their 5-on-5 play as well, but having the best goalie and the best power play gives you such an advantage nightly over whatever team. The Jets have had the second best goalie and the second best power play in this series. And the fact we're even at a Game 7, having said that, is pretty remarkable from a Jets perspective. So they need their goalie to be better. They need their power play to be better. And they need this crowd to bring it, and I have no doubt that they will.
Well, to that end, Connor, I mean, again, one of the things I thought that was interesting in how they talked today was just about focusing, unlike Ezzy, who's already talking about the next series, they were talking about...
Who do you think's going to win the West Final, Connor?
But they were just focusing on this shift. And then maybe the next shift, but not even the next period. And I just think like that, it's one of the things Drew likes to reference a lot, that attention to detail. Because we saw it. There was a lack of that attention to detail. Mason Appleton casually, over the blue line, negates the Morgan Barron goal. And even though they end up scoring after that, I mean, the boost they would have had from a young guy getting his... I mean, I know that Cole Perfetti scored his first playoff goal, but the fact of the matter is that Barron doing it in that spectacular a manner, I'm not saying it has a huge impact on the game, but we don't know. But my point is that the attention to detail wasn't there. It seemed like one of the things that Murat was asking them about this is that they talked about they didn't lose this game, or they haven't lost games because the St. Louis Blues beat them. They beat themselves. That's the way they view it. I'm
self-inflicted.
Yeah, I'm not talking about something that this is what the Jets observe. That's their kind of feeling on this, is that they have created the situations that have led to the mistakes that the Blues have capitalized. They want to minimize that. They want to focus on reducing that. So, again, just from that perspective, like how critical is it going to be early in this game to make sure that those little details are going to be right in order for them to have success throughout the course of the game?
Yeah, and I think it's imperative. If you're looking to feed off the crowd, you're looking to have a good start, which the Jets haven't always had in this series. Even at home, they haven't had good starts in every single game. Mm-hmm. It's imperative for them to... I mean, like Game 6 was a good start too. They didn't get any shots on goal, but they had the puck in St. Louis's end for the first 5 minutes. They were just cycling it around, couldn't really generate and crack to the middle of the ice. But I think for them to have their details right, and details, I've brought up the neutral zone a few times on this show. That's where the details are for me, is the Jets not letting Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou burn you off the rush, and therefore the Blues get O-zone possession and get those point shots. And then you a few of the goals that St. Louis has scored, or not a few, a lot of the goals St. Louis has scored on the road has come from a board battle that they win, that maybe the Jets have numbers on, and they get out of it and get it to the point and then get to the front of the net. Like, it's just compounding, where if you shut that play down on the boards, that goal doesn't happen. And I think the Jets have done a much better job of that at home. I don't know what it is, feeding off the crowd. But I think those details are imperative right in the first 10 minutes, like you said, to having a good start, getting the crowd into it, and not playing from behind, because it's going to be a lot harder to win from behind without Mark Scheifele than not.
From the St. Louis perspective, Connor, they've had a lot of success from their top six, and especially on the back end this series. That's where, if you would have thought at the beginning of the year that Cam Fowler at the beginning of the series is going to have, I think he's up to 11 points now or something like that, a ridiculous number. Is that an area where you're looking at for tonight's game in particular? The Jets need to start to neutralize St. Louis's advantage, because there's no question that the Blues' defense in this game, in this series, has been better than the production, certainly offensively, than what the Jets have been putting out. And then I think that speaks to the Josh Morrissey equation as well.
Yeah, I think if the Jets are looking to copy anything from the Blues going into this Game 7, it's the offense from the blue line. And St. Louis has done such a remarkable job getting shots through from the point, because we know the Jets are trying to block these shots. Like it's not easy to get shots through with a screen, with a layer, but St. Louis finds a way to do it, and it's a credit to their defense. And I think Cam Fowler is like one of the best defensemen in the league at jumping in at the right time. Josh Morrissey does it too, like a lot, and maybe not as much in this series because he's clearly hobbled. But I think Cam Fowler, for the Blues, if there's anything that the Jets defense can learn as a unit, is jumping into the rush at the right time and capitalizing off those opportunities for sure.
Okay, so the guy that I'm going to go to now, I keep asking you about defensemen. I'm not going to ask you about the second round again, Connor, but Dylan DeMello, because that was obviously very uncharacteristic, right? The pass from Schenn, everybody saw it, the Schenn to DeMello pass, and then DeMello absolutely just gives up on it, right? And that's something that I think you would agree. You're watching this and you're saying, okay, we're going to cut him a little bit of slack here, because that was the 5-1 goal, and DeMello has been the poster child for consistency as far as defensemen. But I guess, what are your expectations of DeMello? I don't think they've necessarily changed for me, but I want to ask you, because I think DeMello knows that it wasn't just that one goal. The game was over. Let's be clear here. After,
it's still a bad look.
It was a bad look. So I mean, what are your just overall thoughts on Dylan DeMello? Because like you said, he's going to be playing 22, 25 minutes tonight.
For sure. That entire top four will be, and Dylan DeMello is a huge part of that. And one thing that St. Louis on the road, this series is so, like, you just refer to bad games on the road and good games at home, but on the road, they're able to chip and chase and establish their forecheck, and Dylan DeMello has really struggled under that. I think when he's not moving the puck out of his zone, when he's not getting the puck to Josh Morrissey to skate it out, that's when that top pairing is struggling. And I think if he's able to, make smart and effective first passes, which he's done all season long, and even done in the home games when that pairing has been solid, I think that's the path for Dylan DeMello to be the best version of himself in Game 7. In a game where he's going to log a ton of minutes, he's going to take a ton of hits, he's going to be a big part of that penalty kill as well. He needs to have that quiet, effective game that we know he's capable of having. And the same can really be said about Dylan Sandberg. They're so similar in a way that if they're best games, they shut down so many plays that you don't notice the big turnover, the big mistake. And I think both of those guys are key to shutting the Blues down for sure.
Okay, well, we've talked about legacy and how important this game is going to be for the core of this Jets legacy. So from your perspective, how imperative is it for this team? I mean, how difficult is this team to have to, if they lose, deal with a third straight first-round exit? I mean, obviously in less spectacular fashion than against Colorado and Vegas, but still nonetheless, ending their season early, especially after winning the President's Trophy.
Yeah, it would be unacceptable. Like, you're the President's Trophy winning team, you're the number one team in the NHL, you win your first ever division title, and you therefore get the easiest matchup in the West. And with home ice, easiest. Well, I don't know. Minnesota gave Vegas a run for their money too. I don't know.
I don't think any of the teams from the Central are easy. Let's put it that way.
No, I 100% agree with that. The Blues were one of the hottest teams.
I don't think any of the teams in the West were easy. Yeah. I mean, the West is just such a juggernaut.
Yeah. This is the Stanley Cup playoffs. Like, you gotta beat good teams. I hate to use that cliche that coaches use all the time.
Although if you're the Jets, you're probably happy you didn't trade for Brock Nelson.
Yeah, and mortgage your future for zero.
The East is certainly weaker, but regardless.
Yes, 100%. I will say, like, it's never. This is the year. This is supposed to be the year when they've learned how to lose. They've done it. They've gotten reverse swept back-to-back years, or won the first game and lost 4 straight. They had a home ice against Colorado last year and had an incredible season. But this year, all the underlying metrics pointed to a team that was a Stanley Cup contender, and for them to lose in the first round would absolutely be unacceptable. So it's a massive game. It's the biggest game in this franchise's history, in my opinion, because of the bet on the core, because you committed to Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck.
Bigger than Game 7 in 17-18 against Nashville?
That team
Connor was just a little peanut in 17.
Connor was 8 years old.
When was that?
I was going to say, were you allowed to stay up late and watch those games? Sorry.
No, it's warranted.
Well, no, Connor, what Drew's saying is we're really old.
That's exactly
That's what
we're
Drew's
saying.
really
Yeah.
saying.
Here's my counter argument to that is that team was young and the window was wide open. That team was going to compete for years. They ultimately didn't. I mean, they collapsed in the second half of 2019, but that team had Kyle Connor, Nick Ehlers, Patrick Laine, all on rookie contracts.
It just goes to show you, sorry for interrupting, the idea of competing for years. You look at the Colorado Avalanche. They have Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar, two of the top 5 players in the entire NHL, maybe 2 of the top 10 if you want to be critical of them. And how many first round exits in a row or second round exits in a row do they have right now?
4 years, I think it was.
Exactly. Since they won the cup, everyone, dynasty. Well, dynasty like the TV show was canceled.
Yeah, I will say,
by the way, Dynasty was a TV show in the 1980s.
Well,
Drew was one of the executive producers of that show.
You guys keep bringing up things from the 80s. I'm not going to get the
I
references.
know. I realize that.
Yeah.
So there's a wider audience.
Let's educate Connor about disco music.
Maybe after the game, I'll indulge in that. Right. I will, the commitment to this core and where this team is at. Yes, you have Dylan Sandberg, Gabe Vilardi, and Cole Perfetti, who are all 26 years old and under and going to be massive parts of this team for the long-term future. But that is nowhere near the level of young that 2017-18 group was, with Ehlers and Laine and Connor all 23 and under, I believe. So I think for what this team is, Connor Hellebuyck's 31 years old. They're the number 1 team in the league. This is the year. This is supposed to be the year that everything came to fruition. It did during the regular season, and it's up to them to show it in the playoffs now.
Before I ask you the last question, I'm being reliably informed by Karen Christina in the chat that there was recently a Dynasty reboot. So my pop culture references are actually accurate and current, as opposed to very, very old.
Didn't see the Dynasty reboot coming in there.
Well, I'm pretty sure they're rebooting everything.
Exactly. They've run out of ideas.
That is actually a sign of age, is that everything gets rebooted. And you're like, oh, I mean, when they did a Beverly Hills Cop 4, I was like, well, I was ecstatic. And they mentioned Winnipeg twice.
There you
Should I just go now? Or?
No, you're good. You're good. I'm going to go put on my bell bottoms before I ask this last question. So tomorrow morning on illegalcurve.com, we know that there's going to be the next day takeaways. They've been there, I guess, through all 82 regular season games. They've been there through 6 playoff games. So you're going to write, next day takeaways, column 89 tonight. Is there going to be a 90, 91, 92, 93, or does it end after 89?
Yes, there will be 90.
There you go. Connor.
I like it.
Connor Harabchuk of illegalcurve.com.
Connor's keeping the faith. I like it.
There you go. Thank you.
This is the number 1 team in the league on home ice. How could you not have the faith? It's 30 degrees outside, folks. Let's go.
Connor Harabchuk, illegalcurve.com. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the game. We'll read about your takeaways tomorrow on illegalcurve.com. And, of course, great job with your coverage all season long.
Thank you.
You say it's going to continue, so
from
your lips.
Yeah.
This is my favorite guest of all time because now Drew has to pump illegalcurve.com. It's not even me.
I know.
It's got to be killing him, but this is fantastic.
Just
Mention it again. A
little piece of me dying every single time I mention illegalcurve.com, your home for Winnipeg Jets news, audio, video, and everything under the sun. We go to break. When we come back, more on the Jets and the Blues. We're live on location at City Place, about an hour 10 before puck drop. It's rapidly approaching. The excitement is building here. Stay with us. Much more to come on this edition of the Illegal Curve pregame show.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Shortly after 5 o'clock, welcome back. It's the Illegal Curve pregame show, a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. So many people walking by saying hi. It's so nice to meet all these people finally.
It is, because so many people are like, oh, I feel like I know you. In fact, someone used my name, dropped my name to get into something, saying they knew me, and then realized they didn't know me, but they owned up to it, and that was Chris from out west. So, it's great. We really appreciate everyone coming by and saying hello and letting us know that they spend their Saturday mornings with us, or after games, or even if they don't join us live, they listen to it the next day. And some folks don't even get involved in the chat. We hope they do. We hope they smash. I didn't ask them if they smashed the like button, though.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure that
Come back here. I got to ask you that question.
All of you people, get back here. Dave's going to lecture you about smashing the like button. Even if you don't chat, you got to smash the like button.
Right.
That's all we ever ask. But it is a great atmosphere here. You can feel the vibe. I mean, we're less than an hour, right around there, until puck drop. The excitement in the city has been palpable. I say it again there, Ezzy. It's the second time I used that word.
I almost feel like you own that word at this point.
I think it's a trademark, yeah. Anybody else?
You also used stupendous and you tweeted stupendous, just so you know.
Well, look, you're not supposed to follow me on Twitter and...
it's the Illegal Curve Twitter account, so I had no
fair
choice.
enough. There you go. You're stuck with that. But, it's 30 degrees outside. I mean, what kind of May day is this?
Summer's here, finally.
Well, I mean, this is ridiculous outside, and you can feel the energy. I do feel, though, it's a bit of a nervous energy.
Actually, I would disagree. In fact, I've got the Illegal Curve poll up on our YouTube channel, the Illegal Curve. Follow us on YouTube. And of the 136 votes, 77% are predicting a Jets Game 7 win.
I like it.
Well, look,
it's not a scientific poll.
Yeah.
But it's as scientific as we're going to get on this, Sunday afternoon?
I love the optimism. The optimism is great. There's no question about that.
78%.
Okay, the numbers continue to move in the Jets' favor. I mean, I would hope people would be optimistic. At the same time, though, the start to this game and getting out to that good performance early on is what's going to make a world of difference for the Winnipeg Jets. You need to be the better of the two teams nice and early. You have to harness the energy that is, that the Winnipeg Jets are feeling ahead of today's game. You have to harness that and drive that and use that as a force. That's why you have home ice. That's why you did so well all regular season long, and to put yourself in this position to be able to use it and leverage it and get that extra boost from it. And I mean, it is, I'm often one to sort of poo-poo the impact of a crowd and say, the players on the ice determine what's going to happen. I truly still believe that. But
not in this series.
But any extra advantage that you can get from the crowd and from that, the raucous environment is one that you need to grasp onto. It's one that you need to leverage to the best of your abilities. Because again, it's one game. There's no one saving it for the next game, for the next round. Even if you're looking ahead already, there, Ginsberg. It's all about what's happening tonight in downtown Winnipeg, inside the arena, in about an hour's time.
100%. And to your point, Drew, for me, an ideal start is Connor Hellebuyck stops Robert Thomas within the first minute or two, maybe stops Cam Fowler, who's got 700 points in the series early on, and then the Jets get an early goal right after that, like within the first 5 to 10 minutes. To me, that's an ideal start. And I think the Jets...
Do you have a short leash on Connor Hellebuyck tonight?
I have a short leash on Ezzy.
Well, we always have a short leash on Ezzy. We also actually have an electric fence around him at all times.
You guys have put a muzzle on me as well before.
Yeah. We have a taser
Forget about the leash.
At the ready in case we
No,
need it.
I think, look, like you said, Drew, I mean, let's zoom out for a second here. This is obviously something we've already mentioned, but this is the first home Game 7 in Winnipeg Jets 1.0 or 2.0 history, which is incredible. So we have to keep that in mind here. But it's also a situation where this is your season on the line, and everybody knows that. This is not Game 5 now. This is Game 7. So I think based on that, yeah, the leash is going to be a little bit shorter. Put it this way. I don't think Connor Hellebuyck's staying in for 5 goals against tonight. That's not happening. And hopefully we don't get to that point.
If it gets to that point, it's a lost cause.
Exactly, right? So, but I do think, if a couple of goals are let in and one of them is ugly, it's something that I would have never even considered, because you would agree that you let Hellebuyck work through it, right? You hope that he makes that next big save.
Right.
But I think based on the fact that, look, it's a storyline, guys, right? And like I was thinking about this as I was driving here. I realize we're not supposed to be biased and, we're not supposed to cheer for the Jets. I don't think I've ever wanted Connor Hellebuyck to have a better game than I do tonight, based on what's happened.
But that's from the human perspective.
No, absolutely. That's me hoping that I,
it would be hard
hope
to watch
it into reality. But just
hang on for a second.
Sure.
It would be hard to watch him struggle again tonight.
Yes.
I don't, just strictly from the human perspective, it would be hard to watch, Dave, if he is just so, I talk about fragile, we talk about the fragility. If you see that, it's going to be hard. It's like watching a second baseman who can't make the throw. Chuck Knobloch, Steve Sachs. We've seen people get the yips.
Mookie Wilson.
As he's just going to name.
You're just naming baseball players without any context to what we're talking. A golfer who can't make a 3-foot putt anymore.
Ezzy Ginsberg.
Well, it's hard to watch that happen, and so that would be just from the human perspective, if that's the scenario that you're saying tonight.
But let's fine, and that's fair. But I have to tell you, I think you're going to see the best version of Connor Hellebuyck tonight. I really do. I think that you're going to see a team that is going to give absolutely every last breath and last ounce of energy in order to give him the sight lines that he had all season long, so he can stop those shots from the point, so he can stop. There won't be the traffic, I don't think, the way it has been throughout the course of this series, especially in St. Louis. I think they're going to give him every opportunity to see shots. The attention to detail, I could be wrong. I've usually been pretty good when I do an assessment of this team because of how closely we follow it. And I have to tell you, I think the team is going to not do that in tonight's game. From Connor Hellebuyck, straight out, I think you're going to see all of these guys giving that sort of Herculean effort in order to take this one, because they don't want to be done. I don't want them to be done, because that means my content goes from now till the draft, and then I'm going to have to start making stuff up.
But because so many times, to your point there, so many times over the years, Connor Hellebuyck has carried the Winnipeg Jets, and he's lifted up his teammates who are having a bad game, who are struggling, who are giving up too much, who are porous defensively. Connor Hellebuyck was the stabilizing force for so many years. Perhaps it's time today more than ever for the Winnipeg Jets to repay him, for the 18 skaters in front of him to repay him by being his stabilizing force.
Well, it's kind of like we've been doing this show for 16 years, and I couldn't even count how many shows we've done in those 16 years. Thousands at this point. Sometimes Drew decides to go on vacation and Dave Amarai has to step up and host. Obviously, we don't do as good of a job as Drew does, but no, to your point, I mean...
I pay him to say these things.
The Hellebuyck has to be better, period, but also it goes without saying, Dave, like you've said numerous times already this afternoon, the Jets in front of him have to be better, right? And so they have to let him see the puck better. They have to make sure that their coverage is flawless, right? And it wasn't in Game 6. And you talk about attention to detail during the regular season.
Yeah.
Now it's just magnified, especially when you get later into a series, right? So whether it's Hayden Fleury coming in on the third pair, whether it's the top pair of Morrissey and DeMello, they've got to be at their best. Like that's how high the stakes are tonight, guys, right? Like this is going to be an absolute war. I think it's going to be a close game. I think we're going to see a little bit of a chess match early on. even though I'm hoping for an early Jets goal, I don't know if we're going to see it as early as I would like to. I mean, 5 minutes in the first 5 minutes is what I would ideally like to see, right? But I mean, this is going to be a game, that the Blues have nothing to lose, right? Everybody wrote the Blues off during the Four Nations tournament, and then they came back and they went on this miraculous, 19-4-3 run, whatever it was. And so the Blues, they're going to bring their A game. All the pressure is on the Jets as far as I'm concerned at this point, losing Game 6 the way they did. So, look, it's going to take a team. It always takes a team.
Let me ask you this, Dave. Second game for Ehlers, third game for Velarde. What are reasonable expectations from the two of them? I thought Ehlers looked good in his return
that's a lot
in
of,
Game 6.
You get a lot of amped up. I mean, it's your first game back. You're excited.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of energy. And the fact of the matter is you need Ehlers. Again, I think Ehlers has to be a key player for this Jets team. I mean, again, Ezzy's not wrong. I think everybody is going to be pulling in the right direction and having to be doing what their role calls for. But ultimately, the bottom line is, you absolutely have to see more from Velarde and more from Ehlers and more from the guys who are the big dogs. I mean, there's a reason why you get 15 to 22 minutes a game, and that's because you are seen as a driver on this team. Cole Perfetti has been a big player in this series. Remember what happened to him last year? Not this year. I mean, he's become an integral part. We talked about him during the regular season, how he was a complementary piece. And then the game against Utah, he gets the hat trick, becomes Perfetti, and suddenly he really has become a driver on this team. And that's critical. I mean, we talked about a guy who has to take that step up. We see with Seth Jarvis, the Winnipegger in Carolina, with, how he stepped up from that same draft class in 2020 with Cole Perfetti. So, I mean, Drew, I would expect you are right. I think that the team does owe him. But I think that collectively, like I said, I've covered this team all year long, and when Connor
a lot of I didn't realize there was an Iron team.
Well, I'm just saying that.
There's an Iron Manuke, though.
Let's put it this way. I was at the rink.
And Ginsberg, actually.
I was at the rink.
All for one and all for one.
All for one and all for Dave. But anyways, hey, for the record, just be clear, I always brace it as illegalcurve.com.
There's also an eye in the legal curve.
Yeah, that's true. So
Tim doesn't like when you point out.
There's an eye in Tim.
He's getting nervous. Yeah, there's an eye in Timmy. So, I just think that there is now you completely derailed me. I had like this nice thought, and then it's like, okay, there I go. It's completely gone.
So you lost
legit. I completely lost what I was saying.
The speed factor of Nikolai Ehlers, I think, is something that's going to be important in today's game because he, of course, is the fastest player on the ice. Certainly the fastest player for the Winnipeg Jets. And without Scheifele there, I think that's something that would be of a concern, that the Jets might be too slow. And obviously they prefer to have Scheifele in the lineup. But I want to see Nikolai Ehlers using that speed, maybe as a result having the St. Louis Blues defense be a little bit more passive, maybe, because they're worried about they can't be as aggressive because he could beat them. He could beat them wide with his speed and things of that nature. I want to see the Jets skate. I haven't necessarily seen them at their skating best in this series, and I think that today is one of those contests. There was the shift or the rush, the Morrissey and the Mesnikov in Game 6. It didn't result in a goal. It resulted in a decent scoring chance. It was a give and go between Morrissey and the Mesnikov. That's one of the only times I can really think of seeing Morrissey using his speed through the neutral zone. Connor talked about the neutral zone and the battle there, as being so important in today's game. If you can get speed through that neutral zone, if you can be going downhill through the neutral zone, it's going to be a huge, I think, factor and a determining factor potentially for, as a result in tonight's contest.
Absolutely, you want to see Nikolai Ehlers. I almost said Easers. I think I was
Nikolai Geezers.
I was thrown off. I'm not sure if you guys saw the dude with the Paul Eisebart number 22 jersey. By the way, like that's going back to the 92, 93
or 1.0.
Yeah, that's going back a long time.
If I recall correctly, this isn't the 1960 World Series, but didn't it was Craig Janney who scored the first goal in Game 3 of '96 against the Red Wings. I think Craig Janney had the first goal, but I think Eisebart had one of the goals in that game as well for the Winnipeg Jets.
Tim Cheveldayoff trade, or no? Was that?
It was Essenza and first of all, his name wasn't Cheveldayoff. It was Chevelday.
What did I say?
Cheveldayoff.
Oh, that's funny.
Tim Chevelday, and wasn't it Chevelday and Eisebart for Essenza?
I think so. By the way, I'm not going to debate you on who scored the first goal in 1996.
I don't know my children's birthdays.
Was Tim even alive in 1996? No, but I think it goes back to what we were saying, and you made the point about Nikolai
Now
Ehlers,
I have to
right?
look it up, by the way.
No,
Obviously.
and I threw everybody off by I had to give the guy some props for wearing a Paul Eisebart jersey. Like, how often are you going to see that in Winnipeg even? But, you talk about Ehlers, Drew. I mean, I think throughout the course of a season, guys, there's going to be a lot of expectations and pressure. Maybe not pressure is the wrong word, but expectations of the second line contributing throughout the course of a season, throughout a round of the playoffs, but especially with no Mark Scheifele, right? Like, this is a situation where the Jets can't feel sorry for themselves that they don't have Mark Scheifele in the lineup. Right? He's out of the lineup. They wish he was in the lineup, but that means that they're going to have to be the sum of their parts, right? It's the old hockey cliche, right? We got some Jets fans that know the Jets are going to win tonight. There's no doubt that those guys know that the Jets are going to win. But I mean, so Ehlers, Perfetti, Lowry, I mean, that's going to be a key tonight. And I'm expecting big things out of that line. And, you guys both made good points about Cole Perfetti. He obviously was a healthy scratch last year. And to Dave's point, he's now a driver. So the expectations are increased even more so with that line. You need that line to be a key driver in tonight's game. Look, Vlad Domestikov, do you need him to be good? Of course you do. Yeah. But he's not Mark Scheifele. You can't expect him just to provide the type of offense that Mark Scheifele provided. But Drew's point is well taken in terms of not only have you missed the speed of Nikolai Ehlers, the Jets have other guys that can skate. It's not like the Jets are a slow team, right?
But,
so I mean,
Ehlers is one of the fastest players in the entire
NHL.
NHL.
No, absolutely, and NHL Edge tracks that, right? Rasmus Kupari is also up there in terms of one of the fastest guys in the league, right? I think Morgan Barron was in there. So, like, again, this isn't a slow team by any stretch of the imagination. They might not be, as fast as the Colorado Avalanche, for example.
Yeah, but the Avalanche they're golfing. So I mean, that's a moot point.
No, it's true. I wanted to give it to the Avalanche fans, maybe if there's some listening, Drew. But to your point, it's what comes after the speed, right? It's because that usually leads to the Jets establishing
zone
offensive
time.
plays
Yes.
in the offensive zone, right? So that's going to be a key. You obviously have to control the neutral zone. You have to make sure that you're limiting what the Blues defensemen are doing because they're going to be jumping up into the play. Look, there should be no surprises at this point. We're 7 games into the series here. It's not like you shouldn't know what the Blues are going to bring. We've seen enough of the Blues. We know what they can bring. It's a question of, can the Jets play the type of hockey that has led them to success? I think they can.
Well, I mean, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Well, I was just going to say one of the talking points today, because Scott O'Neill was asked about the strength of this team's belief in the sum of their parts. So, I mean, to the idea that you don't have Mark Scheifele, maybe you don't have Connor Hellebuck playing at that Vezina or Hart Trophy level, but collectively this group knows that they don't necessarily need that at all the time because they've got other guys who can step up. And they have that belief in guys like Nikolai Ehlers, the guys like Gabriel Velarde, whether it's Adam Lowry, whether it's Alex Iafallo, someone else who can step up in the absence of whether the player's on the ice and just not doing it, or is absent because they're not playing in tonight's game. So that to me is what we've seen all season long, is this team has had that belief that when, Kyle Connor's not in the lineup, or Nikolai Ehlers is in the lineup, or Mark Scheifele isn't in the lineup, maybe not so much Connor Hellebuck, but when those guys haven't been in the lineup, they've been able to rise up collectively and get it done. I expect them to do that again tonight. We'll see.
What about the do it for Scheifele factor? Do you think that's a bit of a motivating,
for sure,
aspect for the Winnipeg Jets? Again, you have to gleam onto anything you can get your hands onto. There's no reason to not use anything under the sun to drive yourself and motivate yourself.
Drew, but sure.
Yeah, no, very few people do it for Drew. You don't have to worry about me.
Even Ezzy and I wouldn't do it for Drew.
I don't. I wouldn't blame you guys.
Be a pretty good campaign slogan. Do it for Drew.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to be a politician. There's way too many skeletons in that closet, let me tell you. But, anything that again, the Jets are playing this series and have played the 7 games where they haven't had a full roster. Now, St. Louis would say the same thing, that they haven't had Dylan Holloway, and that's fair, and that's absolutely correct. But the Jets, not having Holloway, and they've known they weren't going to have Holloway for the entirety of the series, is different than having guys come in and then leave, and guys be in the lineup and then be injured and have to leave the lineup. I think that's a lot more difficult to adjust to than when you know a guy who's not going to be an option for you in the entirety of the first round, and you know that from game 1, from before game 1.
Yeah, and I think they, to answer your question or to address what you brought up about playing for Scheifele, doing it for 55, I don't think the Jets players are going to admit that necessarily vocally if they were asked about it. I'm sure they would definitely tell you off camera that they definitely are extra motivated by the fact that Scheifele's not in the lineup. And I think it's because not only the fact, Drew, that he's your top center, not only because he's one of your best offensive players, because it's the manner in which he went out, right? He took 2 big hits, 3 big hits if you throw in the Jordan Kyrou hit,
Sure.
but especially the Braden Shen hit, which the entire hockey world was obviously talking about based on the fact that, some people thought it should have been a suspension. Obviously, we're not going to,
we don't need to
rehash that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think there was definitely an argument that could have at least been a 1-game suspension. So yes, I think that's extra motivation. And like you said, Drew, there's never a lack of extra motivation when you're in a situation like this where your season is on the line. So I think that's actually something very valid. And it goes back to what we said before. Having said all of that, you don't have Scheifele. So one of your top offensive weapons is out of the lineup, but you have Ehlers and Velarde back, and you have a good enough team, in my opinion, just like the Dallas Stars did it without Jason Robertson. And shout out to Wheatland Hockey Academy, by the way. So you've got Velarde and Ehlers back. There's enough guys on this team. Again, you got to be the sum of your parts. You got to do your job, do it well. Hellebuck's hopefully going to be the regular Hellebuck that we've used to be seeing, the Hart Trophy finalist, Vezina, 3-time Vezina winner, even though it hasn't happened yet. We all know that. So, again, getting a little bit too excited here.
Yeah, so
because,
calm yourself down and let me wrap the post. Let me wrap this.
No, well, you wrap it, Drew. But,
Okay.
Connor Hellebuck, this is a season, a career-defining game for him. So, again, we'll hope that he's at the top of his game, but we'll also hope that the rest of the boys are at the top of their game because they're going to need it. The Blues are not going to go out easily.
We'll find out after the game on the Illegal Curve post-game show. We'll break
Final
it all
results
down.
from the poll.
Yeah.
254 votes.
Yes.
74% felt the Jets would win. 26% would felt the Blues would win.
That is science right there. It's
Irrefutable
indisputable
proof,
science. After the game, the Illegal Curve post-game show, we'll break it all down. Are the Jets moving on to round 2 or the Jets moving on to the golf course? We'll know the answer in a few hours' time for the first time ever. It's Game 7, first time at the NHL level. It's Game 7 in Winnipeg between the Jets and the Blues. It's been a fun one. It's been a fun series. We'll find out later on if it continues or not. Thanks to all of you for joining us live on location here at City Place. Thanks to all of you joining us live online on our YouTube channel. We'll be back for the post-game show right around 9 o'clock tonight after the game, give or take a couple minutes. We will be there. We'll have coaches' comments, players' comments, everything to do with Game 7 between the Jets and the St. Louis Blues. For Dave Manouk, for Ezra Ginsburg, for producer Tim Debenham, I am your host, Drew Mindell. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We'll be back for the post-game show. Enjoy Game 7. It's the first time ever in Winnipeg's NHL hockey history. The Jets and the Blues will see you all later for the Illegal Curve post-game show.
Woo! Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow @Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.